Aya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Punjabi Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jasodanandana Brajachandana Jasodanandana Brajachandana Jana Brajachandana Jamanatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari 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 Jasodanandana Brajachandana Nandana Brajachandana Jasodanandana Brajachandana Jasodanandana Brajachandana Yamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hari Vijagat Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda Ki Gaur Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This evening, looks like we'll be finishing the last part of Adi Kanda from Chaitanya Bhagavata. And we're going to begin reading from text 172. This is narration about Haridas Thakura. And he's just been rescued by Krishna from the hands of the king and the Kazi. And they've accepted him as a saint because he's 22 marketplaces beating and came right before the king, who, you're definitely a saint. Please forgive me for my awful offenses. You may go wherever you like. Then Haridas went and found a cave. On the bank of the Ganges, he remembered Krishna day and night as he resided alone in the cave. He would chant the holy name of the Lord 300,000 times a day, and his cave was thus transformed into Vaikuntha. A huge snake lived within that cave, and no living entity could tolerate the burning atmosphere produced from its poison. As a result, anyone who visited Haridas in his cave could not stay for more than a few moments. They all felt intense burning from the poison, but Haridas was completely oblivious. The Brahmanas sat down together and considered, what is that burning sensation in Haridas's cave? There were some expert physicians living in Pulia. When they came there, they could understand that the burning sensation was due to the presence of a snake. A physician said, "There's a big snake somewhere inside the cave. No one can remain here due to the effects of its poison. This is our assurance. Therefore, Haridas should immediately go somewhere else. It is not wise to live with a snake. Let us go to his cave and inform him." Then they all went to see Haridas to explain the situation and request him to move. "There's a big snake living in this cave, and no one can remain here due to the effects of its poison. Therefore, it is not wise to live here. Please, find another place to stay." Haridas replied, "I have been staying in this cave for many days, but I haven't felt any burning sensation. But since you are all suffering, unable to tolerate the burning of the poison, I will leave tomorrow for another place. If there is a snake in this cave and it doesn't leave by tomorrow, then I'll leave and go some other place. Don't worry. Let us all chant Krishna's name." As soon as they began to perform kirtan, a wonderful incident took place. Guess what? Snake left. Hearing that Haridas was prepared to leave the cave, the large snake immediately left. It was early evening as everyone there saw the snake leave the cave. The large, wonderful snake looked most fearful, yet it was also very beautiful, being colored yellow, blue, and white. As the Brahmanas saw the brilliant jewel adorning its head, they fearfully remembered Krishna. After the snake left the place, the Brahmanas were overjoyed to find that the burning sensation was gone. They all appreciated Haridasa's marvelous potency and developed great devotion for him. Miracles have a way of creating devotion. It is not very glorious that a snake left its cave simply on the request of Haridas Thakura. Simply by his glance, one's bondage, born of nescience, is destroyed. Even Lord Krishna does not transgress the words of Haridas. Now please hear another wonderful incident that was narrated by the king of the snakes. the king of the snakes. Just yesterday evening was a whole, the Gaya lila. And we're back with snakes again. One day, a snake charmer was dancing in the courtyard of one wealthy man. His associates played the mridanga and a flute used for snake charming as they loudly sang on all sides of the snake charmer. The snake charmer was absorbed under the influence of some mantras that he was chanting. By providence, Haridas came there and began to watch the snake charmer from the side. By the power of the mantras chanted by the snake charmer, the king of snakes had appeared in the body of the snake charmer and was happily dancing. The snake charmer was loudly and sweetly singing about Krishna's dance in the Kaliya lake. As Haridas heard the glorious pastimes of the Lord, he fell unconscious to the ground, and his breath stopped. When he regained consciousness some moments later, he roared loudly and began to dance in ecstasy. Seeing Haridasa's ecstatic mood, the snake charmer stopped his dancing and stood off to the side. Thakur Haridas rolled on the ground, and wonderful ecstatic symptoms like hairs standing on end, crying, and shivering became manifest in his body. Haridas was fully absorbed in ecstatic love after hearing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and tears of love flowed from his eyes. Then everyone surrounding Haridas joyfully began chanting Krishna's glories, while the snake charmer respectfully stood to the side with folded hands. After Haridas returned to external consciousness, the snake charmer again began to dance. Everyone was overwhelmed with joy after seeing Haridas's ecstatic absorption. They all eagerly took the dust from his footprints and smeared it on their bodies. But there was a problem. One pseudo-brahmana who was in the audience thought, "I will also dance today." Even an illiterate fool who dances like he's in ecstasy is greatly respected by common people. Thinking in this way, he immediately crashed to the ground and became motionless. As soon as the pseudo-brahmana fell near the dancing snake charmer, the snake charmer became angry and began severely beating the brahmana with a stick. After being beaten with a stick all over the body, the anguished brahmana ran away screaming, "Father, Father!" Thereafter, the snake charmer happily continued on with his dance, as everyone there watched in astonishment. Later, they all folded their hands and asked the snake charmer, "Please explain to us why you beat the brahmana. And why did you stand aside with folded hands when Haridas was dancing?" Then the serpent devotee of Vishnu spoke through the mouth of the snake charmer about the glories of Haridas. Ask me about, me is with a capital M, about a mysterious subject. Although it is confidential, I must disclose it. You all felt great reverence for Haridas when you saw his ecstatic mood. Seeing this, that pseudo-brahmana fell to the ground in an envious imitation of Haridas. Who has the power to enviously disturb the pleasure of my, capital M, dancing? Out of audacity, he tried to imitate Haridas, and therefore I punished him accordingly. He presented himself as an important person by imitating some religious sentiments. Actually, that arrogant and deceitful brahmana has no love for Krishna. To achieve the devotional service of the Lord, one has to be free from duplicity. One who sees Haridas dancing is freed from all bondage. When Haridas dances, Lord Krishna personally dances. Thus, the whole universe can be purified by seeing his dance. His name, Haridas, is appropriate, for Lord Krishna constantly dwells in his heart. He is affectionate to all living entities, and he is always engaged in their welfare. He accompanies the Lord whenever he incarnates. He is never offensive to Vishnu or the Vaishnavas, and even in a dream he does not deviate from the proper path. One who associates with Haridas for even a fraction of a moment will certainly attain shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva always desire to associate with a devotee like Haridas. And the order of the Lord Haridas was born in a low-class family to show that birth in a high caste or good family is useless. If a devotee of the Lord is born in a low-class family, but he is still worthy of worship, that is the verdict of the scripture. That is, the devotee is worthy of worship. If someone is born in a high-class family but does not worship the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, then his high-class birth is useless, and he falls to hell. Haridas thus took birth in a low-class family, prove the words of the scripture. Haridas was born in a low-class family just as Prahlad was born in a demoniac family, and Hanuman was born in a monkey family. The demigods desire the touch of Haridas, and even Mother Ganga desires that Haridas immerse himself in her waters. What to speak of his touch? Just by seeing Haridas, one is released from the bondage of fruitive activities. Indeed, even if one sees a person who has taken shelter of Haridas, he is freed from material bondage. If I glorify Haridas for 100 years, with 100 mouths, I would still not reach the end of his glories. You are all fortunate, for because of you, I received an opportunity to glorify Haridas. I assure you that one who simply chants the name of Haridas without offense will certainly attain the abode of Krishna. After speaking in this way, the king of snakes became silent, and all the pious people there felt fully satisfied. Thus, the Vaishnava snake related the glories of Haridas Thakura. By hearing the snake's narration through the mouth of the snake charmer, all the people felt great affection for Haridas. Haridas Thakura passed his days in this way before Gaurachandra manifested his devotional feelings. People throughout the world were devoid of devotional service to Vishnu. They had no understanding of the meaning or goal of kirtan. There was no trace of devotional service to Vishnu anywhere. Everyone simply taunted Vaishnavas. The devotees would meet together and chant the names of Krishna while clapping their hands. And these miscreants became most indignant even at this. Those atheists would meet together and blaspheme the devotees, saying, "These brahmanas will destroy this country and bring about famine. These brahmanas perform sentimental kirtan and play various tricks in order to beg alms. The Lord takes rest for 4 months during the rainy season, but these brahmanas loudly call him even at that time. Is this proper? If the Lord's sleep is disturbed, he'll become angry and create a famine in this country. There's no doubt about it." Someone said, "If the price of rice increases, I'll catch them and give them a punch." Bengal. Someone else said, "On Ekadashi, these devotees stay up all night and chant the name of Govinda. What is the need for chanting the Lord's name every day in this way?" The atheists condemned the devotees in various ways. The devotees all felt aggrieved on hearing these things, yet none of them gave up chanting the names of Lord Hari. Haridas was particularly aggrieved to see the people's lack of interest in the process of devotional service. In spite of this, Haridas continued to loudly chant the holy names of the Lord. The most sinful miscreants were even unable to hear this loud chanting. In this regard, there was one impious Brahmana who lived in the village of Harinadi. He once angrily said to Haridas, "Oh, Haridas, what is this behavior? Why are you loudly chanting the names of the Lord? The injunction is that one should chant in his mind, which scriptures say that one should chant loudly. Who has taught you to chant the name of Hari loudly? Please give your explanation before this assembly of learned scholars." Haridas said, "You all know the glories of Lord Hari's holy names. Therefore, I have simply repeated and will repeat whatever I have heard from you. If one chants loudly, he gets 100 times more benefit. The scriptures never condemn loud chanting, rather they glorify it. If one loudly chants the holy names of the Lord, he obtains 100 times more benefit than by chanting softly or remembering the holy names." The Brahmana said, "How does one get 100 times more benefit by loud chanting?" Haridas replied, "My dear sir, listen to the verdict of the Vedas and Srimad Bhagavatam in this regard." Haridas then revealed the purport of all the scriptures as he began his explanation in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. "Listen, dear Brahmana, if even animals, birds, or insects hear the holy names from the mouth of a pure devotee, they will go to Vaikuntha. Anyone who chants your name purifies all who hear his chanting as well as himself. How much more beneficial, then, is the touch of your lotus feet?" That's a scriptural reference. "Although animals, birds, and insects cannot chant, when they hear the holy names, they will all be delivered. If one silently chants the names of Krishna, then he is delivered. But if one loudly chants, then he delivers others also. Therefore, the scriptures say that he gets 100 times more benefit by chanting loudly. One who loudly chants the holy names of the Lord is 100 times greater than one who silently chants, because those who chant silently purify only themselves, while those who chant loudly purify themselves as well as those who hear them. The Puranas say that a person who chants the Lord's name loudly is 100 times more pious than the person who chants to himself. I don't have the commentary. I'm sure Bhaktisiddhanta has pages of what the Puranas say about this. It's just the verse. Although all living entities have a tongue, only the human beings are able to chant the name of Krishna. Tell me, what is wrong with that activity by which living entities who have taken useless births will be delivered? One person may maintain himself while others may maintain 1,000 people. Of the two, consider carefully who is better. This is the superior characteristic of loud chanting. After hearing the words of Haridas, the Brahmana began to angrily blaspheme him. Now even Haridas has become a philosopher. I can see that Vedic culture is being destroyed by the course of time. It is stated that Shudras will explain the Vedas at the end of Kali Yuga, but why only at the end of this age? We can see this happening even now. This is how you advertise yourself, so you can eat nicely at others' houses. If the explanation that you have made is not true, then I will cut off your nose and ears. Hearing the words that the sinful Brahmana spoke, Haridas smiled and chanted the name of Hari. He did not speak further to that atheistic Brahmana, but left immediately while loudly chanting the holy names. The sinful members of that assembly were all wicked-minded. They neither supported the authorized statements of Haridas, nor did they protest the offensive words of the Brahmana. They were Brahmanas in name only. Actually, they were all demons, fit to be punished by Yamaraj. In Kali Yuga, demons are born in families of Brahmanas in order to harass the saintly persons. Quote in scripture, in Kali Yuga, demons will take birth in the families of Brahmanas to harass those rare persons who are conversant with the Vedic way of life. The scriptures forbid one from touching, speaking to, or offering respect to such a Brahmana. There is no need to speak further on this. Even by mistakes, one should not touch or speak to those Brahmanas who have no devotion to the Supreme Lord. This in quotes. This is some scriptural. Just as one in this world should never see a dog eating chandala, one should never see a non-devotee Brahmana. One final page. One who converses with a non-devotee Brahmana loses his piety. Within a few days, that wretched Brahmana was attacked by smallpox, and as a result, his nose melted away and fell off. The punishment he had proposed for Haridas Thakura was awarded to himself by Krishna. Aggrieved to see the entire world absorbed in sense gratification, Haridas would sigh deeply as he chanted the name Krishna. After a few days, Haridas went to Navadvip with the desire to associate with the Vaishnavas there. All the devotees in Navadvip were overjoyed seeing Haridas. Upon obtaining the association of Haridas, Advaita Acharya treated him as dear as his own life. All the Vaishnavas showered their affection on Haridas, and he reciprocated with great devotion. They discussed among themselves the burning offensive statements of the atheists. Then devotees constantly discussed with each other topics of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Here comes the benediction. One who reads or hears these topics will attain the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Sri Gaurachandra, accepting the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, life and soul by Vrindavan Das Singh, glories their lotus feet. There is another chapter. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit more because we have some time. This is the final chapter, 17th chapter. He goes to Gaya and receives initiation from Ishwar Puri and starts to become ecstatic. Love of God. As the number of atheists, so that's titled the chapter is The Lord's Travel to Gaya. As the number of atheists increased in Navadvip, it became difficult to even hear the mention of devotional service. The devotees were all distressed to see that people were simply attached to illusory pleasures. Although the Lord was absorbed in studying and teaching, he noted the devotees' distress. He heard how the miscreants were constantly blaspheming the Vaishnavas. The Lord thus desired to manifest himself, but he thought he should first visit Gaya. The supremely independent Lord Gaurasundar desired to see the holy place of Gaya. After performing the Shraddha ceremony for his father, according to scriptural injunctions, the Lord departed for Gaya with many of his students. The Lord first took permission from Mother Sachi, then happily left to see. The Lord passed through various towns and villages on the way. They were all turned into holy places by the touch of his lotus feet. The Lord and his students conversed, joked, and discussed various religious topics, and after a few days, they arrived at Mandara Hill. The Lord then saw the deity of Madhusudana at the top of the hill, and then he wandered about the hill according to his desire. While traveling like this, one day, the Lord manifested a fever. Sounds familiar, right? Krishna had a headache. Chaitanya had a fever. What was the remedy for Krishna's headache? Well, dust from the lotus feet of anybody. And nobody said, no, we don't want that reaction. Gopi said, here, take. We'll go to hell. So this is a similar pastime. Different, but similar. He had a fever. In order to instruct people, the Lord of Vaikuntha displayed a fever, like an ordinary person. When the Lord manifested his fever halfway to Gaya, the hearts of his students were filled with anxiety. They tried to cure him with various remedies, but by the desire of the Lord, his fever did not subside. Then the Lord prescribed his own medicine. If I drink the water that has washed the feet of a Brahmana, my suffering will be relieved. Then the Lord drank the water that had washed the feet of Brahmanas in order to reveal its glories. As soon as the Lord drank that water, fever subsided, he felt relief. According to the Vedas and Puranas, it is the nature of the Supreme Lord to drink the water that has washed the feet of a Brahmana. And he quotes Bhagavad Gita, as they surrender unto me and reward them. The Lord desires to be the servant of anyone who always desires to be a servant of the Lord. The Lord is therefore known as Sevaka Vatsala, or he who is favorably inclined to his servants. He accepts defeat in order to increase his devotees' glories. The devotees have only the Lord as their protector, and therefore, how can they give up his lotus feet after being cured of his fever in this way? The Lord and his students came to the bank, the holy Punna river. I think I'm just going to stop and explain a few things. This pastime of the Lord receiving initiation is a turning point in the whole lila, because he has been moving from the student wrangling, debating, hostile, aggressive student, proud, apparently, student, defeating everybody left and right, to having some further, getting some association with Ishwara Puri. You remember? Ishwara Puri was traveling, sannyasi, and he had written a book about Krishna, and he requested, so Lord Chaitanya requested him to come to his home. He offered food cooked by Sachi and offered to their deity to Ishwara Puri. And then Ishwara Puri requested Lord Chaitanya to edit or proofread, see if he made mistakes. And after saying, how can there be mistakes? He was hearing from him for 3 months. He found something that he thought better to be changed from this to that. Ishwara Puri considered it overnight. The next day said, no, it should be this, not that. And here's why. He was defeated by Lord Chaitanya, and he was happy because he was always defeating everybody else. Some service, offering prasad, some service to Ishwara Puri. Now comes honoring the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Next comes seeing the feet. In Gaya, there's a very large impression of the feet of Vishnu, with Brahmanas offering prayers, etc., etc. So he had that preliminary. Then he did the whole of the Gaya rituals in one day. And he was cooking at the end of the day. And Vishnu, his spiritual Ishwara Puri came. He offered everything to Ishwara Puri. And so there's steps and sequences leading up to his transformation through receiving mantra diksha from Ishwara Puri. And the language that was spoken by written by Vrindavan Das, said, instead of saying he received initiation, he gave mercy to Ishwara Puri, that it's because he's the Supreme Lord, who can be the spiritual master of the Supreme Lord, like Sandipani Muni was the spiritual master of Krishna. A very special relationship, an eternal spiritual relationship. Ishwara Puri served in that. It's pastimes. Now that it leads into the Madhya Kanda, which is going to begin tomorrow, I guess. And in the Madhya Kanda, the Lord is this ecstatic devotee. And then he starts revealing his heart, his devotional heart, to the devotees. It's really amazing. His waves of ecstatic expression and his eagerness to see Krishna. Because we hear in the teachings of Rupa Goswami, which are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which are the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, to the eligibility for going from practice to love is the eagerness. So he displayed that eagerness to see Krishna. I mean, it's a nice pastime, very nice pastime. As he went back towards Navadvip with his students, and he was in such a state of ecstasy he didn't know where he was. So instead of going straight to Navadvip, they went to a place called Kanai Natashala, which is somewhere towards the Bangladesh border. And in Kanai Natashala, he saw Krishna. And then when he saw Krishna, he ran with his arms outstretched to embrace Krishna, and Krishna disappeared and he fainted. Then his madness exploded. Where has he gone? Where are you now? Something like we hear of the six Goswamis. Hey Radhe, Rajadevi Ke, Chalalite. Are you on the side of Govardhan Hill? Where are you? The eagerness to behold the beautiful form of Krishna. So meanwhile, always chanting, but as we know, at least from philosophy or from scriptural texts, from the name of Krishna, as one becomes immersed in and attached to the name of Krishna, the form of Krishna becomes revealed. And then this is another topic. The form of Krishna that becomes revealed through the name is not over there is the form of Krishna and over here is the name. It's the form of Krishna is within the name. But that realization is gifted to the devotee who becomes attached to the holy name and chanting the holy name and taking Krishna's association. And that's our practice. Sadhana bhakti. So I don't know how all of you are doing, just hearing Lord Chaitanya's pastimes day after day and section after section. And I think the part of the mystery of those who are followers of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, that mystery is becoming unfolded a little bit, becomes very attractive. The merciful nature of Lord Chaitanya and how he connects his devotees to Krishna through his pastimes, through his chanting of the holy name. Haridas Thakura included. Let's see if there's some discussion. 7:15. You want to do the running? Your brother's not here, so you substitute. He's behind you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have two questions. The first one is, like, when we hear about Haridas Thakura, the one thing that comes up is humility. is humility. And I was, in one of your classes, you were saying how humility leads to acceptance. Can you explain a little bit, and how do we practice that, especially the acceptance part, Maharaj? How do we develop that?
I just got this really long letter from somebody on the way. I'm just reading it in my phone on the way over. I haven't read the whole thing thoroughly, but they're asking the same question based upon something that they've heard and are trying to internalize. It's the antithesis, or antithesis. After the false ego conception of life is I and mine. And to achieve happiness, we do things, to get things. Fruitive. We do things to get things, and we achieve things. That's going to make us happy. And that tendency is carried with us into the beginning of our devotional life, where we do things to get recognition or achieve something or something. And the absence of that is who we really are. It takes a while to get beyond who we are to get to who we are. The affinity for fruitive activities as the medium for earning happiness, gaining happiness, deserving recognition from others, and this sense of achievement, self, aggrandizement, all that. It's layers and layers and layers and miles of layers of that. As that becomes cleansed, then genuine humility, not the material kind, but the genuine humility becomes more prominent, more pronounced. And that is, you know what? Not just I'm insignificant, but the significance is being part of Krishna. Meant for Krishna's service. That's who I am. Tiny part of Krishna meant for Krishna's service. That's humility. That's spiritual conception of humility. And when that spiritual conception of humility is more operative than was before, then I'm eager to, in a softened heart, in a receptive mood, to receive and accept that which arrangements Krishna is making for my service, my further purification, and everything else in my life. I'm feeling under his care and protection. That's one of the symptoms of surrender, feeling Krishna's protection. So it's acceptance of the position, the spiritual conception of life, and acting that way, with spiritual humility, not the other kind. Repeating it. Not the other kind. And accepting my position and accepting the arrangements. Now, it doesn't mean I switch my intelligence in the off position, but the intelligence is how to please Krishna, how to reach Krishna, how to satisfy Krishna. And that's the acceptance part. The situations are what they are. And sometimes, because it's the nature of the place where we are. Sometimes, place of duality. My service to Krishna isn't interrupted by when it goes in this direction or that direction. It's transcendence. It's that there's the non-devotional position is to become numb. You become a stoic, and so whatever is happening, it's, pebble stones and gold, it's the same. It's all false. But this is not like that. This is with humility, the acceptance of being in your relationship with Krishna, and whatever it is, and it's an opportunity to serve Krishna. In many cases, There's lots of purification going on, which is fantastic. The mind may say ouch, and the intelligence says yes. That's the acceptance. And staying in your relationship with Krishna. That's humility. That's spiritual humility and acceptance. And you just continue to move, and then it just continues to move. The relationship with Krishna becomes your life, which is who you really are. Self-realization emerges from the rubble of material conditioning and contamination and confusion and false ego and striving to prove myself and become something.
Another question is, Maharaj, this is maybe off topic, but I wanted to know, the worship of Nityananda Mahaprabhu, was that started by Prabhupada? Because in Gaudiya Math temples, we see only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I've seen Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's deity in there.
You see many things. More often, at least from my observation, it's more Bhaktivinoda Thakur established Gaur Gadadhar. Srila Prabhupada established Gaur Nitai. Srila Prabhupada also authorized, there's a letter in which he authorized or Mahaprabhu, deity. And some temples in ISKCON have Mahaprabhu, deity. And there's, maybe it's a devotion, maybe it's just practical. I know one temple that's very soon going to have formal deity installation, and their plan is to have Mahaprabhu. But the emphasis upon Gauranitai is the emphasis upon preaching. That's Prabhupada. He preferred. Or I shouldn't say preferred. That was the standard. Initially it was Panchatattva paintings in temples, and then after some time Gauranitai or Jagannath, Baladev Subhadra. And then eventually in some places Radha Krishna. But that was the sequence. Gauranitai instead of Mahaprabhu or Gaur Gadadhar. But it's not, the other way is wrong. Okay. You're on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I really liked when you shared about the Haridas Thakura in the cave. How when even though snake, everyone else was feeling the burning sensation, but Haridas Thakura was not even feeling it because of his tolerance. I was connecting with how we hear about Trinadapi Sunichana, Tarodapi Sahishnana, the tolerance. When we have these qualities, we can chant the holy name constantly or continuously like that. So that is a nice quality we can see from Haridas Thakura. I was thinking about how do we develop specifically these qualities more properly. The Trinadapi Sunichana quality, especially the tolerance onwards. If you can share anything.
Real tolerance, like real humility, comes from a spiritual conception. There's the material kind, and there's the spiritual kind. And the spiritual kind is, I'm a servant of Krishna, and Krishna is making some arrangement for me. And so this is the acceptance of the arrangement for me. And, tolerance is not it hurts, or tolerance isn't, I don't like it. Tolerance is whatever it is. Whatever it is. Now, there's some indication of inconvenience with tolerance. And that means I have my idea of how things should be. And that's natural. And it's not my idea of how things should be. So, but my mind does not become disturbed because it's not how I envision things should be. Rather, it's this acceptance principle. That is, it is what it is. And Krishna's making some arrangements so I can go forward with my service with that acceptance of Krishna's arrangement. So what I'm saying here is acceptance is not so different than tolerance. Although tolerance makes it, has a connotation, it's not what I want it to be. Because if it's what I want it to be, then there's not really tolerance. It's like, yay, what I want it to be. So how to cultivate, develop spiritual conception and live your life accordingly. Find persons who are proximate to you or in scriptures or wherever that are exemplary of that characteristic, just like you're mentioning Haridas having that quality. So you speak about him, remember him, read about him, and so forth, and that way associate with him and develop through association qualities. Aspire to be like that person who you emulate because they exemplify a particular quality. So, the life of devotion. It's from the heart principle. We have something over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's off the topic. My question is, you mentioned while chanting how to overcome the thought is
How to do what?
how to overcome the thoughts is through bhakti.
How to do what?
Overcome the thoughts.
How to work from the thought?
How to overcome
Okay.
from the thoughts is practicing more bhakti. Sometimes the thoughts
You're
are...
referring to another discussion.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Sorry for that. So
Because there's people in the room that don't know the frame of reference. Okay. Stems from prior discussion. This was gone over. Okay.
yes, and when the thoughts come, if I practice as an observer,
If you do what?
practice as an observer,
Practice as an observer.
but the thoughts are so much binded with the senses that when the thought comes, it's already interacting with the senses, and I'm not able to see a detachment from the thought. It's basically coming, the thought is already embedded. So, and as well as practicing bhakti is through devotional service. And what type of service can help to eliminate or overcome that type of activities?
Attention. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's yoga. Attachment to the Supreme gives detachment from the temporary. So you practice attachment to the Supreme. And, you got an obstacle, and that's the attachment to the temporary. As you've said, it's in so much embedded in the senses already, even just when the thought comes. So that's that's part of acceptance. This is where I am. That's where I want to go. Let me strive. And you strive by right means, and you'll get there. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, it's true. So you struggle. That's the point. And, even when you try to struggle less, you're struggling more. So the message is clear. What to do, you strive by right means. There isn't a better method than the method that's given in Scripture and given by the personality of Godhead and through his representatives or acharyas. That's part of acceptance. This Kali Yuga. That's the acceptance. It is what it is. Here we are, midst of Kali Yuga, a lot of turmoil. My mind is influenced by that turmoil. It's hard to be attentive. Okay? That's the acceptance part, that it is what it is. Now what? You follow the yoga process that's recommended for this age of Kali. You continue moving towards the light, and the darkness is dissipated. However long it takes. And one of the things that you'll find out as you continue striving like that sincerely over time, you realize that you can't do it alone. That's good. Good realization, because you can't do it alone. That's the doership mentality. You can't do it alone. You have to. It requires mercy. So while simultaneously you're in striving, but you're also calling. That's this acceptance, right? Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have one more inquisitive question. That is Maharaj. So about Haridas Thakur, he saw the Supreme Lord. So that's the inquisitiveness. Like when he saw, is it like Paramatman realization or Bhagavan?
I don't know what you're talking about.
When Haridas Thakur saw the Supreme Lord.
When did he see the Supreme Lord? When is it?
He said he saw Krishna in the cave, or like after getting from the cave, after he started chanting, got the initiation from the spiritual master.
Haridas took initiation from whom?
Ishwarapuri, maybe I got confused.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Krishna. And so it's a two-headed form of Krishna in Vrindavan. That's what he saw.
I got twisted with Haridas Thakur. Sorry, Maharaj.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Let's move on. Let's see if there's anything online. Okay, let's go online.
Prematarangani Mataji posted the purport. If you wish, I can read, Maharaj. For the 284 verse. Text 284, chanting with loudly. We
Yes.
get the benefits of 100 times.
Oh, she's got the commentary that speaks about that. Why don't you give me your phone, then I can read it. Persons who loudly and congregationally chant the holy name of Hari obtain 100 times better results than those who chant the holy names softly. If a person secretly hears some ordinary words on the pretext of hearing Harinam from a foolish so-called guru, and being tempted by material enjoyment, engages in motivated worship, then he will never achieve eternal auspiciousness. Whereas if one loudly chants the pure holy names heard from the mouth of a liberated Mahabhagavata spiritual master, then other Vaishnavas who hear that chanting will discuss the glories of Harinam amongst each other. As a result, the loud chanters are more benefited than the soft chanters. Those who cannot realize the difference between Namaparad, Namabhas, and Shuddhanam often commit the first of the 10 Namaparads. What's that? Criticizing a sadhu or Vaishnav who has fully taken shelter of the holy names. And they commit the grave offense of disregarding the spiritual master by considering him a mortal being and envying him. They commit offense by considering material objects as worshipable and seeing Lord Vishnu, the controller of all, as equal to the demigods. This is a long purport. This is going through the 10 offenses. And so chant loudly instead of silently in a secluded place. Okay. Now, part of the reason this is when I was in Naperville, so already covered, and so it's not here for this evening. Anything else? Online? One more?
This question is from Puja Mataji's daughter Nina.
Hmm.
I know that Krishna and his forms show us how we should act. But in the serpent story, the serpent was saying that nobody should imitate Krishna or his devotees. So, what do we do?
You follow the example of, but don't imitate. And there's a big difference. Follow the example means there are some principles of how to live your life that the perfected persons show, and we don't imitate the perfected persons because we're not on that standard, but we see the principles and we follow to our capacity. We follow those principles in our life. Okay? Nina's a young girl. What's her age? Nina's age, 5 or 6, something like that. Maybe a little older. Huh? Okay. Anything else in the room?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, I want to receive the gift of realization of holy name of Krishna and Krishna are one and the same. What's the qualification that I should have for that?
Quoting Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are not equipped in our present condition to have that realization, to even have a clear understanding. How it is made possible is one thing, by hearing. Then the realization comes. By hearing, then the mind becomes controlled. And when the mind becomes controlled, then it becomes a possible realization. Until the mind becomes controlled through the process of hearing, we will not have that understanding. It's not within the realm of possibility, because it's of the transcendental realm, and the mind can't go there. But when the mind becomes cleansed and absorbed in the spiritual dimension, then we can have that realization. Krishna so desires. By hearing. Simple answer. Okay, you get the last question.
One comment and question, Maharaj. Comment is that when you were describing about the transformation, Lord
About the
Chaitanya-
which?
about the transformation
Transformation.
before initiation of Lord Chaitanya, you were describing the sequence, like how he served Ishwarapuri when he was there,
Yes.
like that. I really like that particular aspect, that how devotion service starts with the mercy of devotee who gives an opportunity to serve and then goes on further.
Yes.
That's a comment. And the question was, you were mentioning about how Lord Chaitanya exhibited quality of eagerness, which is the eligibility to go from practice to love stage of devotion.
Yes.
Could you speak more about Lord Chaitanya exhibited that eagerness? You so desert, Maharaj.
Well, his eagerness knew no boundaries. And that's an example of we can't imitate. It's there in the form of teachings. It's there in the form of his example. We can't imitate his example. We can learn from his example and follow his teachings. It's a principle. So his was otherworldly. And then it kept increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing. The states of madness. And just a last little comment. Not only here, but temples all over North America, they're on a track of, prior to Lord Chaitanya's appearance, having classes that are about Lord Chaitanya, one thing or another thing. Like when I go to New Jersey next, every class every evening is on Lord Chaitanya. And it's been that for some time. And I've been invited to speak. They're doing the same thing in Houston. So I'm going to be speaking. I was assigned Shikshastika 6, and Shikshastika 6 is way up there. It's, the states of transformation. It's somewhere between Bhava Bhakti and Bhava Bhakti becoming Prema Bhakti, states of transformation. But, according to Rupa Goswami's teachings of Bhava and Prema, the elements of Bhava are bliss and soft-heartedness and an eager anticipation. Then when the Prema stage, it just explodes. Moves very swiftly and very intense. The bliss becomes, there's a Sanskrit phrase that means intense. Bliss is intense. It's not like one is eager for that intensity. It just is. It's part of the sort of Shakti of the Supreme Lord. One's eligibility is to undergo the purification to come to that stage. And then the bliss is just really intense. And the heart that has already been soft becomes more soft. Extremely soft. And there's a third thing. There's secondary things. This is Rupa Goswami's teaching from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, transitioning from Bhava to Prema, which is right in Shikshastika. So that's the roadmap to get to the goal, is Shikshastika. And it's a stage where there are bodily transformations that just take place spontaneously. Lord Chaitanya said to Prakashananda Saraswati, when I dance and sing loudly, don't think it's an act. It just happens. It just happens. And I went to my spiritual master and said, am I doing something wrong? And my spiritual master said, no, this is good. This is a sign of absorption in chanting. But we're not there. But it's a stage of chanting. It's a stage of the gift of Lord Chaitanya. So we're way down here somewhere and looking way up there somewhere. But it's part of the gift that comes from chanting and the consequent forms, other forms of service that come from chanting, including worship of deity and hearing Harikatha and so many other things that we do. But it's Lord Chaitanya, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are to bring us to that platform, situate us on that platform, go further. So many nice things with Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Okay, so we'll end there. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki.